DiceDaddy.
Welcome back to another video of DiceDaddy. Very happy to be here. Excited for y'all to be here. Today we're talking about balancing combat, what that kind of looks like. We're not going to talk about CR because honestly I hate CR. I think it's the dumbest thing that's ever come about. Doesn't help me at all. Maybe it helps some of you. Maybe some of you. I don't know who. I've never met anybody who likes CR. But let's start off just by giving an example of that end epic level battle that you're going to have with that boss at the very end of the game. You know, you've worked a solid 12 levels to get here, and now it's finally here. Let's see what that combat should not look like. Right over there. All right. After days of traversing through the Underdark, nothing but your own sweat, blood, and tears to get you through, you all finally find yourself at the castle of Verdsilt. Arriving, you see him exit. This Orolithid in all of its purple glory is in front of you. Roll for initiative. Let's do this. All right, it's my turn. He hasn't seen me yet, which is good. So he's still technically, and he hasn't acted in combat. So I'm going to go ahead and pop off. And I'm going to try to use my Death Strike feature as an assassin. Well, I only got a 20 total, but because he hasn't gone yet, it counts as a critical hit. So let me go ahead and roll damage. So we have 16 d6 from the original damage. Sneak attack. Okay, and then because it's critical, you know, you gotta do it again. And then because it's Death Strike, you do it again. So kind of roll low, about 100 points of damage. Not too bad. 100 damage. Okay, that's fine. Yep. He's gonna go ahead and mind blast you. All right, reflex save for mind blast. I don't know if that's gonna be enough. Wait, Paladin has aura protection up, so that means we all get +5 bonus with your charisma modifier. So that's gonna be a 23. 23, yeah. Intelligence saving throw for the Mind Blast. I'm really good at saving throws, honestly. So even intelligence, and I have the aura protection from the Paladin, so I got a 27 total. Everybody made their save. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. He'll use a legendary lair action. He's going to go ahead and cause this become rough terrain. Oh yeah, I guess you could just cast fly. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna use chromatic orb, and I'm gonna upcast that, and yeah, I'm gonna try to hit him with it. I'll use my highest level slot. Oh, 20 crit. Let's see here. Cool. Oh, I'm hasted, so I'm gonna do it again. Does a 27 hit? Yep. Okay, well, that's this much more again. So 85 points. 85 damage? Yeah, 85 points. 85 damage, cool. Okay, so with one final blow, you all destroy the Orolithid after 2 rounds of combat. Hope you guys had fun. I did. As we know, that was very depressing. I don't want to be in a combat like that, and I don't want to run a combat like that just feels either hamstrung in one direction, or you get nothing done throughout the combat, or you got one player that's just sitting there because they can't actually do anything during the combat. That's not what you waited 12 levels for. So we owe it to our players to make something a little bit fun. Now I want to preface this with a disclaimer, as I usually do. If you're the type of DM that does modules and that's all you want to do, and you don't want to mess with your monster stats or your BBEG stats, and you just want to do the book because it's fun to do the book, and fine. That's not what I'm talking about, so the rest of the video is not going to apply to you. What I'm talking about is creating combat that's going to be epic. It's going to be legendary. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about what I use to actually do this. It's a system that I developed called Hades. This may not be a new system for anyone, but again, Hades is an acronym, just to be clear. So the first thing I want to talk about specifically is health. Health is easy. I'm going to take my 4 players in this scenario, and I'm going to get an average amount of their health. That's the damage I want to keep in my mind. And then I'm going to talk about the health of the opponent, the BBEG. Let's say it's 200. All right, we got that. That's easy. Doesn't take much time. Boom, let's move on. Second part of Hades is action economy. So if I have 4 players and 1 BBEG, they have 4 actions and 4 reactions. And my BBEG has usually at most 2 actions with a reaction. So we supplement that by actually adding in more legendary actions to allow him to move just as often as these players over here, making it a little bit more equal. So you want these numbers to be a little bit same. If you want to be kind of more one-sided towards the players, you can give them more actions. But really when it comes down to it, we all know that action economy is key in combat. Now, the D, and this is the most important part, damage output. Now, first we need to calculate the overall bearing amount of damage that each singular player can do. And when we look at those damages, let's say a 12th level fighter can do a total of 31 points of damage, so the average is out at 20, and a sorcerer throws fireballs, we can average that. That's a lot of numbers. That's a lot of numbers. Really what you want to do is you want to see how much each player can consistently deal out in combat. If a fighter has 3 attacks, take those 3 attacks, combine them together, and get an average. So let's say if we average out our spells, our main go-to spells for our sorcerers, and our actual combat abilities of our fighters, we get an average damage output of 85. That's just a number. We're going to go with 85. Now remember that 200 we talked about previously? That 200 that the BBEG has? So I know right off the bat going into this game that if all of my players hit every round, they can probably kill this BBEG in about 2, maybe 3 rounds. And that's average damage. Do I want combat to be over in 2 or 3 rounds? No. Alternatively, let's take a look at the BBEG. They also have damage output maybe of around 57. And I know that my average health is around 100 over here. So that means that on average, if I really wanted to and I focused fire, I could kill off a character every 2 rounds. But I already know that if they can deal that much damage that I'll be dead in 2 rounds. It won't even matter. They're just going to bulldoze right through. So when we're looking at consistency, those first 3, HAD, are very important when we actually try to balance combat. How long do we want it to last? What do we want that HP to be at? What damage can they actually deal out? Now, these are averages. It's going to give you an estimate. It's not going to give you an all right, true, altruistic number. But aside from that, the last 2, which is our E, is environment. Now, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but nothing really upsets me more than getting into combat as a fighter, and I have an opponent that is flying the entire time. So if you get into that situation where you have an employee that you have a BBG that flies and you're calculating your damage output, go ahead and get rid of that fire damage. They're not going to be able to do anything. They're not going to be able to help with the situation. Maybe a 1 longbow attack if they have any ranged weapons. This is assuming they've taken the time to get long range weapons, which some of them don't. So environment is important when calculating that ratio. We can see because it's going to basically excommunicate some of your players from dealing damage. Now, the S is probably one of the most important ones, and that's kind of the magical effect. That's the status effects. So these are just things that are just kind of free-floating for that BBEG and for these players. So right off the bat, if my BBEG has a status effect where they regain 20 hit points every round, the maximum damage that our players can do, reduce that by 20. So you have an estimate of how many rounds it will actually take. If they have legendary resistance, cut that number in half unless they have magical weapons. And you can see how these numbers begin to play out and get lower and lower depending on what the scenario is. But that being said, when we're looking at it, we have to factor in all of these. Do I want combat to last 4 rounds? Or do I want combat to last 2 and get bulldozed over? The proper amount of HP compared to the proper amount of damage output compared to the proper amount of actions as well as overall status effects and environment all kind of come into play. But if you start with your basis of Hades, which is just doing any of these steps to say health versus damage, step number 1, you'll find that combat will last as long as it's supposed to, as long as you want it to. Once again, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. We're going to get into this at a different video at a later date, even further in depth. But if you did like this video, go ahead and hit the like and hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much.